I'm here to lead a panel on the conference theme, which is New Paradigm of Learning, Partner and Prevail. And so this panel will really focus on the criticality of partnerships in supporting the delivery of the new learning requirements and the new requirements of employers in this fast changing world driven by AI and changes in technology. And as the Honourable Beverly Say said in that very excellent talk, there are so many issues that are facing the Department of Defense, but also industry as a whole. And hopefully this panel can address some of the partnership solutions that can develop answers to the emerging skills gap and developing digital savvy young people for the future. So each of the panelists is going to spend about 7 minutes talking about a partnership case study that their organization has experienced that is delivering improved learning outcomes or improved employability outcomes. Then Professor Wind and I are going to share some insights from QS and from the Wharton QS Reimagined Education Awards on what are the skills gaps and what are some of the innovative learning solutions that could be relevant for partnerships. And then we're going to have a debate, and we're going to cover some topics that the panelists are going to discuss and hopefully have some agreement, disagreement. And we'll also try and have some time for Q&A from the audience, and then Professor Wind is going to do a wrap up at the end. And we're going to try and get through all that in an hour and 15 minutes. So we're going to be quick on the ball. So let me just introduce the panelists quickly. Jason Strickland is Program Manager, Education to Workforce Statewide Workforce Development at Amazon Web Services, and is going to provide an insight into a partnership between AWS and Miami-Dade University. As you know, AWS is a market leader in providing cloud solutions to enterprises and universities around the world. And I'm delighted to say that QS is actually partnering with AWS and Intel to provide a digital maturity framework to universities in countries around the world to support their digital transformation and to help them to measure their digital readiness and digital capabilities. That's an initiative that AWS have been really helping us to champion. And then I'd like to introduce Heather Housley, who is the Co-Executive Director of Learning Futures at Arizona State University, and is going to tell us about partnerships at the US Department of Defense, Verizon, and their innovative Learning Futures model. And many of you will know ASU is at the forefront of learning innovation. And under President Robert Crow, who has grown student enrollment numbers from 40,000 to 150,000 in recent years. And it's done that by developing a new university design based on advanced use of technology, a student-centric approach, speed, agility, and a real focus on learning partnerships. So really relevant for ASU to be here today. And then I'd like to introduce Levent Yara, who is the Senior Partnership Director at Wharton Interactive. And he's going to tell us about Wharton Interactive partnerships with the government of Malaysia, amongst others. As you know, Wharton is a world leader in the delivery of management education and has been for many years. And Wharton Interactive is helping to drive digital transformation and digital innovation at the Wharton School. So really fascinating case study. And then Professor Tim Quine is Deputy Vice Chancellor for Education at the University of Exeter. And Professor Quine is going to tell us about Future 17, which is a really innovative collaboration between a group of world-class universities that includes University of Stellenbosch, University of Sao Paulo, Chinese University of Hong Kong, and we hope that ASU, Imperial College and others will be joining this program in the near future to really deliver experiential learning in a virtual environment to multi-institutional student teams on sustainability in the SDGs, which is an increasingly critical issue, as we say, saving the planet. And University of Exeter is an elite university in the UK, Russell Group University, that is focused on innovation and sustainability. Its strategy is greener, healthier, fairer, and this is empowering its leaders to really think about innovative learning solutions in sustainability. So it'll be very interesting to hear about that. So on that note, I would like to now hand over to Jason.
All right, thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I'm Jason Strickland from Amazon Web Services Education to Workforce team. On that team, I am the program manager for workforce development. We call them workforce program managers. And I work primarily in states in the eastern region of the US, but really kind of collaborate across the board all over the place. But It's so interesting when I was invited to this conference, because honestly, until the Honorable Beverly Seeley's, chat this morning, I was like, where do we really fit into this? But when you talked about human capital and what a critical need that is a huge challenge for all of the industry, not just the Department of Defense, but especially in the tech sector, sort of just nationwide. If you look at statistics, depending on which source you look at, which data stream, we produce around 41,000 to 53,000 some odd computer science graduates, 4-year bachelor's degree in this country nationally. So if you look at any of the economic modeling data for the number of tech job postings that were in 2021, you're going to see somewhere between 3.1 and 3.5 million job postings, right? So there's a huge imbalance there. And so for AWS, that's a huge challenge, because if we can't get workers into these roles and fill these positions, then our customers can't continue to use our products and services. We can't continue to grow. And it really stymies the pace of innovation sort of nationwide. And the pandemic only accelerated the transition of things to the cloud. And really across the entire IT tech space now, just about every job role is what we call cloud adjacent, because all the skills that were traditionally done on premises, in many ways now that's moving into the cloud environment. But I had an employer roundtable with the state of Tennessee last week, and for the first time I had employees saying, but you know what, we have marketing and communications people and logistics and change management specialists that also need to know these fundamental cloud skills and cloud concepts. So it really just kind of goes across the board. So we've discovered that the only way to sort of address those challenges is to partner, and partner wide and broad. I think we're going to take the model here, partner and prevail, and make that a new AWS motto. I like that because it's what we've done. And one of the things we're really doing on the education to workforce team is sort of expanding access to these cloud careers by moving out from that traditional 4-year computer science degree to adjacent degrees, but also down into the community college space, and partnering wide and broad with lots of collaborating organizations to increase the diversity of the talent pool. One of the partnerships that I'm most proud of that I support is at Miami-Dade College, where they have created a cloud computing center. They had an NSF grant to create cloud computing curriculum, but they have a very tight partnership with Amazon Web Services. We meet with them, just about on a monthly basis, but honestly, I have calls with the faculty probably weekly at this point. But in Miami, we created a large community, not only of the faculty at Miami-Dade College in all the computer science fields, but we brought in all of the local employers from the tech sector in Miami and got them together. Miami, in the accreditation language, they call it a business industry leadership team. At AWS, we call them employer roundtables. And it really, when this was being envisioned, we brought the industry in before the curriculum was even developed and gave the industry a chance to tell us what are the fundamental skills you need someone to have. Let's not talk about degrees or credentials at this point. For someone day-to-day in the job role of a cloud support associate or a cloud engineer, what is the skill set? What's the absolute minimum thing you need to have? And we heard in that particular market quite often was, a AWS Solutions Architect certification and some Python programming. And if we can get those two things together, then we can really start to have an employee that can do something and can make a lot of headway with that. So we really worked hard with the faculty at Miami to create a cloud computing associate degree program that had those concepts in it, but also a certificate program where people that already have a bachelor's degree that want to come back and reskill can come into that. And then on the backside of that, we work really closely with industry that need to hire. So at AWS, we're fortunate to have lots of account managers that tend to know when companies have these hiring needs. And we brought them to the table to start trying to think about how they might use this talent in their organization. One of the challenges we found, though, was it was hard for someone that had never hired someone from an associate degree program, if they've always looked for that 4-year level of talent, to think about how they could use a middle skilled professional. So I just taking my time from the technical college system that I used to work in Georgia, I thought, we could do a demo day and have the students demo their skills. So we worked with the faculty, we created a capstone project, which I look at as more of a demonstration project, where the students architect a solution. They're given a business case. They describe the solution they're going to create in terms of the business case, the money it's going to save the organization, why it's the best solution, and they present it to a panel of employers from that region, and the employers are using it sort of as a screening tool. So we were able to have our first crew of 24 students go through that process in April. And out of 24, 20 of them received hiring offers, and the other that did not were actually continuing on into a 4-year program to finish their education. So it's been widely successful. And now we're taking the learning sort of from that experience, because one of the things is Miami-Dade College is a large institution. It's the largest public institution in the country, depending on which semester you look at. And they have resources that a lot of institutions don't have. And so it's hard to take that same experience and put in smaller institutions. So we're looking at on our team now, how can we take this experience and maybe use some digital twins and some things of that nature and make it a virtual experience where we can offer this type of experience to students from across the country, no matter which institution they're enrolled in, as long as they're an AWS Academy member. So we're doing lots of things like that. And in addition to our Miami-Dade partnership, and we're partnering with 12 priority states where we're looking at statewide sort of as a system, how we can increase access to cloud technology. But even with non-academic institutions, I have a meeting here next week with a company called Skillstorm, who is working on a Vets to Tech program, because we know that lots of our veterans, especially coming out of the security fields, have knowledge that they could easily on-ramp into the private sector when they're leaving their careers with the Department of Defense. And so we're trying to find a way to sort of quickly partner and upskill them and get them in as well. So our really a mission has just been sort of partnering widely and broadly, but really bringing industry in to the point of curriculum design and getting their voice before we even start to think about the curriculum approval process and the faculty committees and how all of that works, so that they can hear firsthand what the needs are, and then we really build programs that tightly align to those needs. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. So over to Heather.
Thanks. I have boring old slides to show. So I think, all right. So hi, thank you for having me. I work at Arizona State University. And so if you go to the next slide, just to give you a little bit of context, as Lindsay already has, we are an access institution in the United States, where we just were named a Hispanic serving institution. So we judge ourselves not by who we exclude, but by who we include and how they succeed. So really, we're focused on providing the highest quality education to the most number of people to really help you all get a great diverse workforce that's prepared to come into the industry. We're also a Research One university, which means that we invest heavily in our research, and we also invest back into the communities we serve. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see this is our honor slide. Everybody has one, but we are a really large institution. So we have about 140,000 students. Our engineering school, just as a note, is 25,000 students, which is the size of most middle-sized universities in the United States. So we truly are a giant university. We've been number one in innovation for 7 years running. Hopefully in a few months we'll get our 8th year, but who knows? But the one I really want to point out is that we're actually number 6 in the hires for tech companies in the country of our graduates. So next slide. And really, I work at a unit called Learning Futures, and this was a unit I co-founded with my co-executive director. And we focus on the future of learning. So we're really thinking about 3 to 5 years, the things like digital twins that'll be pervasive in all of our spaces. And really, how do we develop the student skills to make sure that they're prepared for these spaces? We look at how do we actually think about making proof of concepts and minimum viable products and prototypes to actually show people what that could be like. And then how do we use those points to architect to scale? So next slide. This is just a really good thing that talks to the point that you've all made about talent. So Jesus, this came out, this is the front page of the ASU recruitment brochure this term. And it is, that's one of our student workers, Jesus. He came to ASU not knowing what he wanted to do. He was a informatics major, and he came to Learning Futures, and he found what he wanted to do, and he found his passion through working as a student worker with us. And he is a virtual reality and extended reality developer, and he plans to do that with his future. So really, this is the product of what we do right here. Jesus is the product. Next slide. We're a values-based organization, so a lot of these are really great values. They actually tie to a lot of what the keynote talks this morning said. We need to be more inclusive and equitable. We need to give students agency. They need to have different mindsets. They need to have growth mindsets. They need to be entrepreneurs. They need to be innovators. We have to be responsible in our innovation practices as we move forward. Next slide. So this is what we do. We work on ASU projects for the benefit of ASU. We are at ASU, but we also substantially partner. We could not do this without our partnerships. Our students do two things. One is work on partner. We actually have full partner studios where our students are working on multiple projects with our partners, as well as we actually do one-offs for a lot of partners. So you'll see the U.S. Air Force up there, which was a partnership we actually did with Ensign, who funded this, and we created a next-gen debrief tool that was a prototype because they couldn't quite, the Luke Air Force Base couldn't quite convince their leadership that, hey, we should have this augmented reality tool that helps us debrief planes, plane simulations when our pilots go out there. Right now we're using planes on sticks. Like, how can we actually take the real flight data, visualize it coming straight off the F-16s, and then visualize it and debrief everyone so we can all look each other in the eye through augmented reality, but also see that flight data. And so we built a proof of concept. It went to Spark Tank. And so that was one piece we did with the government. The last thing we do is we upskill our creators. We actually pay them about 20% to upskill of their time. So they are required as part of working with us to upskill in these new and future technologies. Next slide. This is our model. We imagine things in our collaboratory. We build things in our studios. 70 student workers we have. We pay them in our studios to build these proof of concepts. This is the novel point, that we actually pay our student workers instead of them having to pay to be a part of this. We actually pay them to do this and to upskill. The last thing is our Emporium, where we show off all of our work, and we actually host a lot of these workshops for our broader community. Next slide. This is our team. We're a very small team, but you'll see the biggest part of our team is actually the 70 student employees. Plus our partners actually act as mentors in our space and in our model, as well as running their own studios. So next slide. So our studios, our studios are these places where we build these proof of concepts. Sometimes you just need a proof of concept to show someone to get them on board. That's the activist thing, is like, how do you be an activist? Well, sometimes people don't believe you until you have something tangible. So we help people become activists by giving them something tangible. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see how we're organized. Our students are actually interdisciplinary. Those are interdisciplinary guilds that our students sit in. So each of those tie to a real job in the real world. They get sequenced into one of those guilds. They focus on upskilling in those areas, and then they're sequenced into a series of projects. And so you'll notice that our studios, we have our own studio, but we also have 2 studios with Verizon and Zoom. And those studios have a significant number of projects. They actually fund us to do work with them to help them figure out how they're going to reach the future of learning. So just to take Verizon, for example, 5G and edge computing are, 2 of the newest big technologies. And one of the biggest challenges we have with virtual reality is synchronous virtual reality. And so doing things like synchronous virtual reality requires a different kind of network. And so how do we do that? How do we experiment? And how do we build the standards for all of you to be able to do that in the next few years? So I think that's about my 7 minutes, so I'll stop here. But my call to action for all of you is we're here to partner with you.
Super. Thank you, Heather.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here, and thank you for the panel. So my name is Levent Yarar. I'm one of the senior directors of strategic partnership at Wharton Interactive. I definitely agree with Honorable Beverly Che. If I'm saying it wrong, please forgive me. Okay. We as academia, have to be working with you in governments, industries, and companies, lifelong learners, and be able to answer to that call of action. And I'm here to explain how we're trying to achieve that. When I was first called about the partnership and what does it mean partnership for me, I just went a little bit back to my teenagers times. I know I'm just going a little bit further back. But basically, what I thought was, how did I start understanding the value of partnership? Well, when I used to date my girlfriends, the first thing I did is also meet with their parents and try to create partnership and be able to say, look, I'm a good guy. And but at the end of the day, my girlfriend says, no, there's no other way. I mean, I lost. So even though it was a good thing, I realized the value of partnership at that time. So move forward to Wharton Interactive. After 4 years at Wharton Executive Education, about 6 months ago, I moved to Wharton Interactive because it's my passion to be able to deliver what Wharton Interactive is trying to deliver today using partnership as the only model. So why strategic partnership? Because a lot of times you see this term business development as opposed to strategic partnership. But I insisted that we should have the title as strategic partnership because we feel that partnering with anyone, especially with a goal that we have, requires not business development, but partnership. So here is the conundrum I have that I've been looking at since I joined. First of all, the academia says, no disrespect to Professor Wynn, we educate and we just give what the curriculum says. Then the government says, I want everyone be employed, so the living standards are high. The industry says, I want skilled employees, and the learner is stuck in the middle. So how do we solve this? I think the best way to solve this is create partnerships, create ecosystems where the government, the industries, and academia talk to each other, understand the pain points, create frictionless learning tools, and be able to upskill rather than just create degrees through certificates, like Amazon is doing as we speak. So what is Wharton Interactive's goal? As you all know, Wharton is a wonderful, highly valued school, but we can only reach maybe the 1% to 2% of the population that can afford. Wharton Interactive was an idea that was created 10 years ago because it required a lot of technology before we were even talking about EdTech to educate and change, transform, and democratize education by giving access to 100% globally. That's a huge task. And we want to make sure that Wharton's well-known faculty knowledge and expert knowledge to be able to access through our platforms to anyone who wants to upskill. And we can also provide certificates while we're doing. So by democratizing, what we want to do is we want to give high quality education to anyone, whether it's high school, all the way to lifelong learners all over the world. That is the goal with democratization. And by transformation, two things are very critical. One, scalability. Because if we don't scale, if we don't give access to everyone, we will be in the same conundrum that I just mentioned. We will be doing the same things to a select few. And the other way is innovation. To what we have heard today, innovative ways of learning. How do we use, the example is not mine, how can we chocolate cover the broccoli and have them eat while we're giving them a wonderful learning. And they don't even realize what they're learning, but because of the value that they're taking with chocolate and broccoli, and that's the tool we need to use. How do we do this? So Words Unique Interactive came with this idea that we should be learner-centric, immersive, interactive, game-based, which is gamification, learning tools. And we've been in operation for the last 1 year. And as I said, I joined about 5 months ago. And we cannot do this alone. That was the first thing I realized. If we're going to reach millions and millions of people, we have to have partnerships. And we have to have strategic partnerships. Who believes that the whole market is disrupted, the new learning tools is required. So we created what we called alternate reality courses platform, where we have these games, and these games are upskilling for strategy, leadership, machine learning, you name it, because we have such a wonderful resource of faculty doing cutting edge research. We are trying to bring that to everyone and anyone who wants to be part of this journey with us. So one example I can give, I have a lot, but I know I have limited time. We've been working in Malaysia. I'm very global, so we started in Malaysia because I'm mentoring social entrepreneurs, teenage social entrepreneurs there. With the help of Malaysian Higher Education Ministry and NGO, which is Ascendance. It's a, by the way, teenage NGO. All the NGO members are teenage. We started doing a social entrepreneurship learning journey. And part of the learning journey is our entrepreneurship strategy simulation, which is 15 hours. It has a lot of feedback, learning loops, etc. I don't want to go into detail. I have a little booth outside if anybody wants to learn more. And if anybody wants to try one of these, I'm happy to give you, access free. And so the goal is here to be able to create that digital native type of learning to not the top 2%, but to 100%. So let me stop here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And over to Tim.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nuncio. Thank you to the organiser of the conference for the invitation to participate. If I could have my slides, please. As Nuncio said, I'm going to talk a little bit about Future 17, which is a project that we've been developing in partnership with QS and with the universities that Nuncio mentioned.
Wrong slide.
Yeah, wrong slides here. I'll carry on anyway.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of context, I suppose, before talking about the project. As many of you will know, QS do some invaluable research in understanding student motivations about going to university and also surveying employers in terms of what they're looking for. And some of those recent surveys, I guess there were two really key themes I think came out about what student motivations. They're really growing concern about the state of the planet. You might call it the Greta Thunberg generation, a real sense of urgency about wanting to see us move to a more sustainable future. And that's feeding through into a sort of mindset of activism. They want to see change. I think when I was a student, there was the mantra of think global, act local, but it was limited to quite modest ambitions that we had, whereas now I think there's a much stronger drive for change. They're also concerned about their own futures and wanting to make sure that they're ready for the workplace. And the pandemic has really accentuated that. I think that, certainly amongst our own students, a growing sense that they're not really ready for, they don't really feel they're ready for the workplace. And Nuncio was also commented that employers are saying pretty much the same thing, that they're starting to want to see an ability to address sustainable development goals on their doorstep through their own organizations. And they're also wanting to see students who are more ready for the immediate workplace. I'm gathering as the slides haven't appeared, I'll just carry on. That's fine, it's fine. There's sort of graphics which will be illustrative, but I can talk without them. So we've developed the concept of Future 17 to address really both of those themes. And it came at a time when we were talking about the University of Exeter's strategy for 2030. And very much the same themes came through in that strategy development. That across the university community, both our students, our academic staff, our professional staff, our alumni, they wanted to see the university move to a position where it was going to affect change, and affect change in areas around climate change and the ecological crisis, around human health and well-being, and around social justice. And so we're structuring the university around those thematic areas. And in that context, we were really definitive in saying that it's not just our research which is going to impact on those areas, but it's going to be our student communities. So an instantiation of this new approach, and this really founded on partnership, is the Future 17 program. And as I said, it's a partnership with QS. Essentially, QS find sponsor partners, so businesses, NGOs, government departments, who wish to set a sustainable development goal challenge to a group of students. And then we bring together multidisciplinary teams of students from all the university's partners in the consortium. We give them some training in design thinking and the design thinking approaches to problem solving. And then they are set the challenges. And in this year's, I trailed this a little bit at iFEST last year. This year we've started the process, and we had 126 students from the 4 universities involved, working in 18 teams on challenges that ranged from projects sponsored by Axel Springer, with a desire to focus on supporting climate responsibility in the media. Another organization, Green Rebel, who are a regenerative agroforestry firm in Spain, who are seeking to fight deforestation and biodiversity loss. We also had the UN SDG program Prime set a problem based on frameworks for describing climate action by companies, avoiding greenwashing and other pitfalls such as those. And the students worked this spring, as I say, in these 8-week sprints. And the feedback from both students and the sponsoring partners has been incredibly positive. So the students undertake the sprint, they have academic mentoring while they're undertaking the sprint, and then they play back their solutions to the sponsoring organizations. The feedback that came from students was they really welcomed the real world challenge. The structured induction, which gave them some insights into intercultural competence, which we thought was going to be absolutely vital. They recognized the value of that. They developed teamwork and new skills. They developed what one of our students described as empathy with organizations, which I think is quite a powerful term. That sort of sense of students' impatience with organizations not making progress. By working closely with an organization, they realized that perhaps everyone shared that impatience to see progress, but there might be some obstacles that were preventing progress. And critically, they welcomed connecting globally and getting those new perspectives. So students sitting in Exeter in the southwest of England, it's a safe rural environment, talking with students in Stellenbosch and Sao Paulo in Hong Kong are getting a completely different experience of the lived experience of these Sustainable Development Goal challenges. So we're immensely excited by the progress that we've made. As Nuncio said, we're keen to move forward. I think we've been reflecting on the lessons learned and challenges. Naturally, it's a complex problem, connecting students across time zones, platforms, through firewalls. The students really, as I said, they really benefit from the design thinking and the induction process in that. The academic mentors are key. Some of the academic mentors actually said it was the best weeks of work experience they've had in their careers. Integrating into degree structures is complex, but QS are able to offer credentials which provide a sort of mobile method of student accreditation for their learning. And so the next step really is that scaling up. So we've got a good startup pilot, but how do we scale that up? How do we make sure we've got the resource available? The pilot has been quite resource intensive. If we're going to If we're going to move to business as usual, we're going to have to find ways to make that more efficient. And we'll need champions to keep it running when it's not a project led by the senior team. Once it's business as usual, we're going to need that continuing energy. But first indications are it's a really exciting program, and we're looking forward to the next steps.
Super. Thank you, Tim. So we've had some really fascinating examples of partnerships covering different aspects of the problem that have been raised. And what we want to do now is just sort of drill down into the problem. So we're going to show some good research. Should we go to that slide deck that you had on screen a second ago? Great, that's the right one. So I'm going to start, and then Professor Wind is going to take it. I'm going to focus on the employability skills gap. So many of you will know QS. We're best known for the QS World University Rankings, which is the world's most popular higher education ranking system. During the pandemic in 2020, nearly half a billion people viewed our rankings on different media and social media. So phenomenal impact. But actually, QS does a lot more. We provide data and insights and support to governments and over 1,500 universities around the world to help them to improve their performance and to respond to the emerging challenges. What I want to do here is just show you some of the data from our QS Global Employer Survey. Go to the next slide. So as Jason said, and as Anthony Salcito from Microsoft reported at the Reimagine Education Conference in 2018, but also at iFEST last year, there's a fundamental mismatch between the output of higher education and the needs of today's technology companies. But the technology companies want to work with universities to bring about change. And this forum is an environment that sort of is part of that process. And it's really important. So go to the next slide. But what QS wants to do is actually to report on what is the mismatch and how well are we doing in resolving that mismatch. So we have for many years produced a global employer survey. In 2022, 75,000 distinct employer respondents, which is the largest higher education survey of employers in the world, and 26,000 responded on the global skills gap. And then we also asked additional questions this year on the emerging fields of technology skills gaps. And we only posed that to leaders in the technology space, and there were 7,000 respondents to that, all sort of C-suite or director level. So it shows that level of response demonstrates how important this issue is to those leaders. Go to the next slide. So this is showing the skills gap amongst US-based employer respondents on the first column, importance, satisfaction, and then the skills gap. For time, I'll just focus on the gap. And you see that issues that we raised today, problem solving, is the biggest skills gap. Data skills, second, resilience, communication, teamwork are all huge skill gaps. One piece of good news is that the little dashes are the average for the whole world. And you see that actually the skills gap in the US is slightly less than it is for the rest of the world. This would suggest to me that US universities are actually slightly ahead of their peers around the world in resolving this. Nevertheless, the gap is still quite large. And you'll see that data skills, actually, the gap is larger in the US than it is in the rest of the world. That's because actually US employers put greater importance on data skills than employers in the rest of the world. 95% importance. So that remains an issue. We can drill down by any industry. I just did a cut for the defense industry. You see actually that most of the issues are the same. Problem solving, communication, resilience are the same. One interesting thing for the defense industry, data is less an issue. Not because it's less important, but actually you're more satisfied with the people that you have for data skills, which again suggests that there's something that your universities are doing and the places where you're taking people from are actually being effective in providing their data skills. I thought it was interesting. Next slide. And then this is our first cut on emerging skills. We're going to expand the list of technology skills in the 2022-23 survey. This was the first cut, but we do see that data analytics, data science, information systems are the dominant areas of importance that are challenging technology leaders, but also machine learning and artificial intelligence are becoming really significant. And architecture, cloud architecture, is also becoming an emerging issue. So this is just the first set of data. In 2023, we'll have a much richer set of data, and we're working with AWS and Microsoft and other companies to broaden the set of skills that we're evaluating. So that's a very helpful dialogue. And we welcome input from the US DoD as well. If there are skills that you want us to survey at a global level, we can do that. So please, anyone, just reach out to me. The team here have my details. Next slide. Pass, go to the next slide. So we're also monitoring the impact of artificial intelligence. We have a whole ream of data on the impact of AI and the predictions about AI. I don't have time for that, but just want to say that employers are predicting that AI is going to displace analytical, quantitative skills, and technical skills more than any other. And the belief is increasing. In 2022, more employers believe that analytical and quantitative skills are going to be displaced by AI. What that means is that for the university higher education system, it's not just about developing those technical skills. I think the onus on the university is going to be developing a broader range of skills, the global citizen, the complete human being. That's where the essence of the university's role in the future is going to lie, which I think we touched upon already in this conversation. And then, next slide. So, if you want data on which institutions are doing a good job in meeting the global emerging skills gap, QS has that data at an institutional level. We can study university by university how they are performing, and we will monitor that progress over time. If you understand which partners are accelerating solutions, then the Wharton QS Reimagined Education Conference that Jerry and I have been running since 2014 is developing a directory of successful collaborations and partnerships. And we welcome any of you to view that on reimagined-education.com. If you want to submit to our awards, they are live now. We have specific awards relevant to this topic: nurturing employability, best partnerships in higher education and private sector, and the best use of AI. The deadline is the end of September. The awards are announced in December. We look forward to any of you participating. And Jerry, who has been working with me on the Reimagine conference for many years, is now going to sort of share some of the insights from that in regard to learning. Jerry, do you want to? Yeah.
Thank you. If we can start the first slide, please. About is within the context of new paradigm of learning, the partner of Prevail. We can move to the next slide, please. The next one, please. To start with a premise here, that today most of the partnership that we see don't really challenge the mode of operation of the partners. They just accept basically the current paradigm we have and add a little technology here and there, but without really challenging the fundamental issue that we have with education. And if you look at education in general, you find out that our education system failed. The level of high school dropouts, the level of functional illiterate, the gap, the enormous gap that we have in education in society is beyond description. So not only the talent gap, the challenge that we have that we heard from our keynote speaker this morning and repeated here by the panelists, we have to re-examine the current educational paradigm we have. And what I would like to do is really to provide at least 4 examples of how we can start doing it. We can turn to the next slide, please. And my objective is really to encourage everyone here to challenge the paradigm that you are using, whether you're a university or you're the outside provider or you're the military. Challenge the paradigm that we have and don't just try to fix it by adding a little gizmo here or just adding a little technology. So if we can move to the next page, please. I would like to suggest 4 areas for examination. The most important one will be the 4th one that will imply needed to examine all of them. But let me start with a simple one. Why are we using the current grading system? Does not make any sense. Faculty hate it. Most of the reliability of the grading is questionable. And what are we measuring? Why not require in each course that we do to implement the results of the course? Whatever we teach, let's implement it. And who should provide the grading? The company you're implementing it for. So move away the grading from the responsibility of the faculty. Make sure that every course, regardless of the topic, has an implementation component with whoever the partner is. And the grading should be by the company that provides the implementation challenge. Logical, real world, and you make the life of everyone by far better. Next slide, please. Consider scheduling. Scheduling today of university is for the convenience of the administrators and the faculty. Knowledge was not given to the world in increments of 80 minutes twice a week for 14 weeks. Come on, guys, that's absurd. Why not start scheduling based on the learner and what the specific material requires? I was delighted to hear that at least we have 8 week, what Tim was talking about, the 8-week sprint, major development. We've experimented at Wharton at one time with 5-day courses, which are amazingly effective as opposed to a semester-long course twice a week. Challenge the scheduling. Let's move to the next page, please. And let's consider the source of knowledge. Historically, universities were the generator of knowledge. Just look around at what's happening with the research labs of the major companies. Most of the real innovations are happening there or with startups. Let's rethink the source of knowledge and reflect this in what we're doing. And now let me move to what I think is the major needed development. We can turn to the fourth one. And that's changing the paradigm. The current paradigm is centered on the faculty. And the faculty is surrounded by students and whatever the traditional approach. What if we change it? What if we move to a learner-centered paradigm and the instruction is being done not by the faculty, but by a team of AI-based source of knowledge? Think about conversational AI and some of the amazing development there. If you're not familiar with this, Google Amelia, which is our partner in developing the system. It's by far the most advanced conversational AI. And imagine that the student have an Amelia type support, which is accessible 24/7 in any language, on any device, can present it in conjunction with any gaming or any other approach. And this is the source of knowledge, because similar to what IBM did, for example, with Sloan Kettering, where they assembled all the knowledge in the world about cancer that helped Sloan Kettering in terms of both diagnosing situation and treating them, we can develop centralized knowledge on every topic we need, whether STEM or creativity or any other area. And this will be validated knowledge in a given area that can be used anywhere in the world by any learner 24/7 in a more engaging way that any faculty can ever do, and with more knowledge that any faculty will ever have. And the role of the faculty is then more of a coach, mentor, motivator to work with the student, but the student actually, and we're talking here not traditional university students, we're talking basically lifelong learners. Anyone in any organization can basically start accessing this knowledge. So we can turn to the next page, please. The next page. I think there are huge opportunities for changing the paradigm and making a real difference. I'm suggesting 4 areas, and primarily passionate about the fourth one. I'm currently working with Amelia on this. We're in search of getting partners, both in the gaming area and most importantly in the area to apply to, are interested in applying it and testing it. We're in discussion with Singapore that's very interested in applying this in the STEM area and creativity. We're discussing with Rutgers University in Israel on trying to apply this, but would love to do it here in this country and would love to do it with anyone here who is willing to experiment with challenging the current mental model of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. As always, some brilliant suggestions. And so now let's debate these points, the skill gaps points and the new approaches to learning that Jerry has raised. And we started a little bit late, so I'm going to hope we can claw back that 5 minutes. What I'd like to do is first of all, just pose some questions and have 2 panelists respond. And the first question is about knowledge creation. So we've heard about AWS and your project. So Jason, how important do you think it is for industry to be a source of knowledge that is contained within the curriculum? And I'll ask Levent to reply.
No, I mean, I think it's absolutely critical for industry to be involved in, especially when we're talking about trying to find new ways of teaching this content and what students actually need to know on the job roles. If we can get industry in to talk about the day-to-day, what does someone in this job role actually do? And what are the fundamental skills? And I feel like the only way to really truly understand that is to talk to someone that does that job day to day and have them provide you the details on, okay, I'm a cloud associate for Slalom, but what does that actually mean? What are the skills I'm using? What is the work process? What are the workflows? And then how can we take that information and synthesize it so that we can train students on it in new and creative ways and get them into industry quicker, but also with the deeper understanding of the job role they're actually going into.
Brilliant, thank you. Levent?
Can everybody hear? Okay. So I agree, also disagree a little bit, because I think the most important thing is, which we're always missing the point, is we create learning to problem solving. So we're sometimes stuck in the middle as opposed to looking at the problem itself. I think you're absolutely right in saying that we need to, the processes, the cloud, but what problem does it solve? I think we need to understand from industry, and that's important, that what I just mentioned is, how do we solve these problems? By solving the problem, we help Amazon and say what kind of certificates we need for that kind of problem solving. But I think sometimes we miss the bigger point and just jump immediately to certificates and whatnot. But we gotta first define the problem. What is the industry's main problem and how we can solve that?
And I would just follow and say, I look at it as kind of like an ongoing collaboration, especially in tech, where the problem might change day to day. We might be working on one problem today and a new technology comes out or a new service and it changes tomorrow. So I think I think it's a constant collaboration. Like, unfortunately, in my former time as an academic, the advisory committees would meet twice a year. Twice a year is not frequent enough in most of these situations. So there needs to be, I think, really just an ongoing conversation with industry, like we talked about at these collaboration centers and things, to sort of help innovate and provide that speed.
I mean, the whole idea of sort of weekly or even monthly updates of the curriculum is completely novel. I mean, that is a game-changing thought as well. Next question. So we've talked about learning at scale, and Jerry came up with changes to grading, scheduling, for support AI. Can we just debate those points? And Heather, do you want to start? And then Jason, you could reply to that.
Sure. I think that, I really appreciate your radical views. I love them. It makes me so happy. And I would even go even further in saying that if we're going to reach scale and the scale of the need of training and innovation here, we need to not only develop technologies that go along with it, things like digital twins where people can learn and fail. Really, the point of learning is to be in an environment where it's safe to fail. Similarly, where we don't time bound that learning by what our discussion point is or where we're trying to be, but really giving learners agency on what and how and when they want to learn it, and in the ways that they need to learn it to actually master these concepts, and give them time to practice it. And how do you do that at scale, right? So things like technology, like digital twins, can help us. But I think that even the more radical view is actually having the learners creating the learning for other learners. And really, we're all coming in as experts, faculty, staff, industry professionals. We're the experts. And we explain things in the way an expert would explain them. We design curriculum in the way that an expert would design curriculum. We forgot how to be novices. And you know what? Learners who are very close and who are just above novice are actually the best at training other learners. It's something that we've experienced through our work at Learning Futures. All of our learners are actually upskilled by other learners. There are mentors who are faculty and staff and industry professionals who mentor them when they really get stuck. But truly, we find that the way that our learners learn best is from each other, and having that peer-to-peer connection. And when you have millions of learners creating learning for other learners who learn the way they do at scale, you get to that point where you can reach everyone in the way they need to be reached, and give them the agency to choose that learning for themselves.
Just on that point, at the Reimagine Education Awards in 2017, London School of Economics won the overall award for students as producers. 40% of the curricula at London School of Economics is now produced by the students in labs and delivered by the students, with the faculty actually just being supportive and consultative.
I love that.
Jason.
No, and I think that's actually a really great point. I think we've all forgotten how to be novices, even in my conversation with my industry peers all the time. We forget often the process of learning and what people go through, and they need to fail, to struggle. But the one thing I would say to that is that we do have to somehow train these AI systems. So honestly, I think it could be very interesting to see maybe a collaboration between some of these novice learners and our industry professionals working together to sort of train these models to train future learners. It could be pretty interesting. Actually, ASU did something with AWS that was really interesting. You had students in your College of Business that wanted to learn cloud skills, teach cloud concepts to high school students across the country. And it was widely successful. I actually spoke at the closing ceremony for that. And it was very interesting to watch sort of, college level students teaching younger students. And I think that's a model that we should use more frequently. So I'm excited to explore that sort of, as we go forward.
Can we just, on the AI point, Jerry, do you want to elaborate on that?
Quick
Yeah.
comment on this. Actually, this is supported by findings from other parts of life. If you think about successful products, most of them are results of collaboration with the users. If you think about advertising, user-generated content, look basically at all the content we read on Facebook and all the other social media generated by others. Why have we left this out in the educational sphere? No reason.
Yeah, I've never been on a faculty and industry partnership panel that had students actually on the call. And I think that may be something that we need to think about going forward, is inviting some of these students to participate.
So that is one of the things that we do pretty regularly, is actually Unity Technologies asked us to be on a panel, and we said, we're not the best people to talk about it. Talk to our students. Bring them along. Have them tell the industry what these students tell the industry what they want. I'll tell a quick story about one of our partners who came and was very excited to hire some of our students. And they said, aren't you excited to work for us? And they said, we don't want to work for you. And they were stunned. This is a major company who has lots of jobs. And they said, why? Why don't you want to work for us? And they said, because I don't like your culture. I don't like the idea of, I want to start something up myself. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to contribute. And I think that is part of all of our challenge. Universities, companies, everyone is understanding that the next generation has different values. And how do we really rethink about what we're offering them, and not just training them for us, but what are we offering them as they come into these industries?
Can we expand this point for a minute? Because the point has not been mentioned so far. This is consistent with the trends toward open talent. A recent study shows that 1/3 of the US workforce does not want to work for other companies. And they want to work as independent, they want to start their own firm or whatever, but they don't want to work for a company. And the open talent, open innovation area is a hugely growing area. And if you think about companies that even change the world, like NASA, even though they have 17,000 employees, they have a network of over 1 million open talent people that they're accessing on a regular basis. And if NASA can do it, everyone should do it, in a sense, because NASA should not have any problem getting the best talent in the world, but they still realize they have to go to open innovation. So part of the partnership, what has been missing so far, is really thinking about the open talent movement. And also, I think we have to move away from thinking about students. The educational challenge we have today is not primarily in the universities. It is globally. It's the lifelong learning that we have to start focusing on. And if we focus on lifelong learning, I think we have a better chance of start really solving the problems.
Totally agree. everyone should be, I consider myself a learner. I would guess that everyone here considers themselves a learner. And if you don't consider yourself a learner, that's a challenge, right? And so we focus so much on that small age range of people who are in school, but everyone is a learner all the way up through when you're in retirement.
Right, let's move on because we've only got 10 to 15 minutes left. So the next topic is experiential learning, and we've looked at, and in fact, it came out as, how do you get more resilient people who have to make decisions during their learning so that they become, more effective in the workplace. Can we consider, are the partnership models delivering good experiential learning? Tim, do you want to start how Future 17 is doing that, and then Heather, do you want to reply?
Yeah, I mean, I may broaden it out a bit from
Yeah,
Future 17 as well. So I think, so Future 17, obviously a great example, a problem posed to students, and they've got that dynamic interaction with the sponsor of the project. I think if I look across all our portfolio degree programs, because we've got real strength in environmental, ecological science, and in other field-based disciplines, there's a group of our portfolios which I would say are basically sort of instinctively and intuitively experiential. There's a huge component of being out of the classroom and working through that experiential learning. What we're seeing more now is a move to more experiential learning more widely through the portfolio programs. And where that's most successful, it's often linked explicitly to a competency framework. It's not always the same competency framework. So that students are reflecting on the learning, their process of their learning. They're monitoring their own progress. And so we've redesigned our engineering program with problem-based learning as a core element through it, and entrepreneurship through that. The Royal Society, you'll have heard of as the sort of premier scientific society in the UK, they sponsor an entrepreneur in residence. So they're bringing the entrepreneurial expertise into the university. So I think there's some nice examples like that. We've also seen it in perhaps places you might not expect to see it. So in our law and business program on our Cornwall campus, we've got a model which my colleagues call islands of learning, which worries me a little bit because it implies that the rest of islands of learning are an ocean of ignorance or something. But these are week-long periods when we have really close association with business. Business comes in and they set challenges, and the students play it back at the end of the week-long period. And that's quite important in terms of the ability to engage business in a way that meets their constraints on their time. Because if we start to expand the reliance we make on business, then we may be challenged with, Jerry, your idea of business doing all the grading. My colleagues all absolutely sign up for that, but I think it might last a couple of weeks, and then everyone will be going, "Oh, look, you can have it back," because we all know the scale of that endeavour. So I think those are key elements to it. There's a sort of tension that I think you almost implied a bit earlier on, Nuncio, when you talked about that prediction from employers that AI is going to take over subject knowledge and expertise. And I think there was a mention yesterday in the War on the Rocks session about functional expertise and the need for functional expertise alongside other competencies. And I suspect that the death of disciplinary expertise is a little bit premature, and that actually, if you want to tackle a really difficult, complex, interdisciplinary problem, what you need is a series of people with real expertise and a willingness to collaborate, to form partnerships of problem solvers, not a lot of people with a sort of general interest in the problem, but no real expertise. So I think that's an area where I think there's perhaps an overestimation of where we'll go with the artificial intelligence.
Sure.
Yeah, let me challenge this, because I think the open innovation is exactly the point. There is tons of talent around the world, and the talent is not among your faculty. And the best example is NASA. NASA, with all their 17,000 experts that they have as employees, continuously goes for the NASA challenges for other people around the world to solve the problems. You know, kind of, there is no company, no organization that should not try to rely on this. And we should expand our scope. And in every domain we have, we're always complaining about the lack of talent. The talent is out there, but we have to change our mental model to allow us to go outside and treat them in opposed to just looking, how do I hire the next person? My challenge would be in the talent area is how do I access the right talent around the world? Because it may have been solved by another discipline. And no company or organization can hire all the people in all the disciplines. And we know it, that most problems require an interdisciplinary perspective. Most of the problems are being solved by people from other disciplines. So the more we open ourselves, I think the better off we'll be.
It's a good debate. Heather.
Can I just say, I think we agree, but
There's a but.
but I think the development of expertise is a trait, a behaviour that we should develop in our students. So it doesn't, and we should recognise that expertise lives outside of universities, obviously. But it's if there's a risk that if we focus only on the soft skills, we say actually you don't need to develop the rigour of developing expertise. So we all know that athletes need 10,000 hours of practice, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the question around AI. AI is really good at identifying the central concept. But of course, the progress of knowledge creation is by finding the ambiguities, the differences, the reasons why the central concept can work. And I think those are areas where I think at the moment, until we've got generalized AI, I'm not convinced that we will see that take.
Very good debate.
I would say that I agree. I think that, you need both people with expertise who can really get deep into the knowledge base, but you also need novel perspectives. And you need there to be that level of respect between those two groups of individuals. And we know that as AI increases, if we look in the future, it will become more powerful and more innovative, and more closely resemble some of the things that humans can do. We've already seen it with some of the AI art generators. I think that if you really look at the way that you just put a few concepts together and how it generates the art from that, and we all know that blew up on social media. I think that you can start to see where it has a powerful space in the creative industry as well. But I agree that you actually need both. I think one of the things that I'll say about experiential learning, we do experiential learning, and it might be a little controversial, is that students are currently paying for the opportunity to work with you all. When we do experiential learning now, right? They pay tuition and to get access to a problem that companies have the issue that to solve a company's problems. And I would say that we should actually go a little bit further, and that money should go to the student to be paid to solve the problem and to learn it. And that's our model, is that we actually bring students in, we pay them to upskill, we pay them to do the work. And the difference in that is actually that they're treated like employees. So they learn how to be an employee. They learn things like putting in their time. They learn things like how to work in a collaborative team where you aren't friends with everyone. They learn things that actually have consequence and outcome beyond a grade that just goes on a transcript. It's a real product that goes privilege. And I think we should be turning that back around and investing in learners and investing in their upskilling and actually paying for some of them to upskill.
Thank you. We've only got 2 minutes of official time. I'm wondering, do we have a little bit more time? Because we haven't addressed the emerging skills gap, and I just wanted to hear from Tim and Levent if we feel that partnerships are resolving this emerging skills gap, and then just 1 minute each, if that's possible, and then 2 minutes from Jerry just to round up would be great.
Partnerships has to solve emergent skills. Because if we don't, we have a big problem coming up, and it's coming in full force. So I'm just going to say that because I know we're limited time here.
Right. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think integration into the design of the curriculum and the delivery of the curriculum. So the area that I'd focus on for extra is our degree apprenticeship programs. We design the programs with the employers. The monitoring of the program is done on a monthly tripartite review with the student, the mentor, their academic mentor, and their employer mentor. So there's that continuous engagement of the employer in the way that the programs are being delivered, and it really holds us to account.
Which is what Jason
being
was
held to
asking
account
about.
by students, but this really holds us to account on the quality of provision.
Yeah.
Can I say something on the experiential learning? Nothing against my northern colleagues up in Boston. I think experiential learning is the only way we can really stick the learning. Cases, it's been used for the last 100 years. Unfortunately, I think it's time to change, and we need to really use the experiential learning in a virtual setting using AI, whatever technology is available, because we need to put people out of their comfort zone when they're making decisions, as well as give them psychological safety while they're making
Right.
those decisions.
Thank you. Jerry, do you want to just wrap up for us? And I'm sorry we don't have time for Q&A.
Let me kind of give you at least my quick summary. It seems there is a general agreement that there is a major talent challenge that we have to address it. Two, that there is a major need for innovation. Innovation in content, and most importantly, innovation in the pedagogical approaches. All the way to the more radical suggestion that I had in terms of how to rethink the whole pedagogical approaches in education for lifelong education. The third area is, it seems to be a general agreement of the importance of partnership. But again, partnerships come in many forms, and the question is, do we get the most out of them? And my suggestion would be try to challenge the fundamental premise of the partnership, and how can you really improve the results and not just continue with the current approaches they have. If you are encouraged, interested, intrigued by any of these areas and would like to conduct experiments in this area, submit it to the Reimagine Education competition and join us there. And if you're interested in any of my crazy ideas, I would love to talk with you after the panel, and we're looking for partners in almost any area to start applying it. And thank you, Nunzio, for running the panel.
Thank you, Jerry. Summary, and sorry we don't have time for Q&A, but thank you to our panelists, Jason Strickland from AWS, Heather Housley from ASU, Levit Yara from Wharton Interactive, Tim Klein from Exeter University, and Jerry Wynn from the Wharton School, myself, Nunzio Paquarelli from QS. Thank you. Also, thank you to Beverly for a very excellent preamble to our panel. I hope we addressed some of your points that you raised. So thank you, everyone.